B'nei Bilha, Ves B'nei Zilpa, Nishei Aviv, Vayavei Yosef, Es Divasom Ra, El Avihem, V'Yisrael, Ohav Es Yosef, Mikol Banov, Kiven Zekunim Hu Lo, Ve'asa Lo, Kisones Hasidim.
This is lecture 7 in the series Living Judaism, and the topic is Torah Sociology. In the last talk, we spoke about the function in Jewish life of Torah and mitzvahs, that is, the learning of Torah and the practice of the commandments. And you'll recall that we saw that interesting parable from the Talmud about a man walking in the jungle in dead of night, and how after a time we described all the dangers and pitfalls which faced him, and then he chanced upon a torch which saved him from some of the dangers, but by no means all. Then when the sun rose in the morning, he was saved from practically everything. Remember, and the Talmud compares the commandments, the practical commandments of the Torah, to the torch, and the rising of the sun to the study and understanding of Torah, the oral, particularly the oral law. Now you can imagine that the difference, the contrast between the light given by a torch and the light given by the sun is enormous. A million upon million fold. I mean, the learning of the Torah seems to be in quite a different category to the practice of the commandments. To understand the concept of Torah sociology, I mean how Torah and a life run according to Torah and mitzvahs and the commandments leads to a perfected society, a just society, a higher type of society, a better type of society, we have to understand a little more closely the Torah's plan for the individual. How the Torah conceives that the practice of mitzvahs, of commandments, which, as we know, are not only intended for the individual but for the community, plus the learning of Torah ensures the basis of the good society. Why does the Torah pay such enormous attention to the learning of Torah? We find in no other culture, to my recollection, which places a moral obligation on every person in the society to study. In our societies which we know of, the obligation to study is confined to the school years, to the age of 15, 16, even perhaps to college and so on and so on. But the idea that every able-bodied person, or not even able-bodied, every person should be engaged on study as an obligation placed upon him by the spiritual life to the end of his days, to study continuously through the best of his ability. We don't find this anywhere else. But look at the Maimonides, how he describes the commandment of learning the Torah. Hilchos Talmud Torah, laws concerning the study of the Torah, chapter 1. Kolish mi Yisrael, every single person of Israel is obliged to learn the Torah. Bein oni, bein osher, whether he's poor or whether he's rich. Bein sholim begufo, whether he's whole in his body, healthy. Bein ba yisurim, or whether he is suffering, diseased. Bein bochor, whether he is a young man, bein shehoya zokin godel, or of great age, shetoshash kocho, whose strength is failing. Even if he was so poor that he has to go around the houses and beg for his livelihood. Or, it's interesting how the Maimonides puts at the final end of the scale, even if he was married and had children to look after. So, nevertheless, he is obliged to fix days for learning the Torah in the day and in the night. As it says in the Torah, you shall occupy them yourselves with the words of the Torah by day and by night. Now, this is an amazing obligation. We find no other society which has had this obligation. What does the Torah wish to achieve by this? It's obviously not only for the purposes of knowledge. We discussed already, that there is a spiritual influence on the whole psyche, the whole personality, as a result of learning Torah. And this learning at depth, immersing one's mind in the ocean of the Talmud, as we call it, has incalculable effects on the character. I think we discussed this in a previous lecture. The Talmud says in Maseches Bava Basra about the character of Job. We've spoken before about Job, this famous character who appears to belong to the non-Jewish world, but who has left one of the classic books of the Bible. Job, who was wrestling with his suffering. And the book is a dialogue mostly between himself and God. And the Talmud tells us that one of his arguments against the Almighty was that by giving human beings the evil inclination, he has sealed their fate. He said, it's all in your hands, God. And he said, what have you got against us? He makes a parable. You created an ox with cloven hoofs. You created a donkey with solid hoofs. You know that the Torah says that animals with cloven hoofs are permissible food. They're called pure, clean animals. Those with solid hoofs are unclean animals. You created, this is a parable, in other words, you understand what he's getting at. It says, you created tzaddikim, righteous people. You created evil people, Rishoyim. You created paradise, you created hell. It says, who's going to stop you? That's how you run the world. Rashi explains, it means that by giving us an evil inclination, God has already decided that those people whose evil inclination is strong, well, they become evil and they go to hell, and those whose evil inclination is not so strong, they can become righteous and they go to paradise. So this is how apparently you run the world. So what have you got against us? With that, Job wanted to do away with all moral responsibility. But his friends answered him, no, you've made a big mistake. Job, with that you destroy the whole spiritual universe. You've forgotten one thing in your equation. God said, I created the evil inclination, but I created the study of the Torah to counteract it. The Rashi says, the classical commentator says here, therefore there is no compulsion in the world. Since there is something which even the person suffering from the worst evil inclination can cling to in order to change himself, there is no compulsion. Everybody is responsible. Because he has the Torah to take refuge in, to change himself from bad to good. This is particularly refers to the study of the Torah. Because it's the study of the Torah which can change the personality, even more than the practice of the commandments. As the Maimonides says in the same chapter, is why do we say that the study of the Talmud, the study of the whole law, is greater than all the positive commandments put together? Because commandments performed do not lead to deepening one's knowledge and understanding of Torah. But deepening one's knowledge and understanding of Torah leads to commandments. Because the more a person understands of the depths and the wonders of Torah, the more he will have incentive to do better, to live better. So the study of the Torah is a secret of the Torah's way of life. We have in the Torah a hierarchy of values.